لك من الأولى ولسوف يعطيك ربك فترضى ألم يجدك يتيما فآوى ووجدك ضالا فهدى ووجدك عائلا فأغنى فأما اليتيم فلا تقهر وأما السائل فلا تنهر وأما بنعمة ربك فحدث صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات.
So without any delay, I would like to request Shaykh Jafar Muhibullah to the member with the 3 loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Another salat ala Muhammad wa al Muhammad for the hastened reappearance of Imam Zaman. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa al Muhammad. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم به نستعين. الحمد لله الذي جعل الحمد مفتاحا لذكره وسببا للمزيد من فضله ودليلا على آلائه وعظمته ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين أرواحنا له فداء. أما بعد فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. إن الذين يؤذون الله ورسوله لعنهم الله في الدنيا والآخرة وأعد لهم عذابا مهينا. والذين يؤذون المؤمنين والمؤمنات بغير ما اكتسبوا فقد احتملوا بهتانا وإثما مبينا. صدق الله العلي العظيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Jamia Mu'mineen wa Mu'minat. First and foremost, I give my condolences to the Imam of our time, Imam Zaman, Jafar Sharif, and then to all of you on the occasion which we are commemorating. It is the aftermath of Karbala, the imprisonment of Imam Zain al-Abidin, Zainabia Kubra, Kulthum, and the orphans of Karbala. Our discussion, as we mentioned yesterday, is on the topic of family justice and politics, which is suitable with regards to the events of Muharram As Imam Hussein, alayhi salatu wasalam, he brought his entire family, or at least those who were able to make it at that time, he brought his family to Karbala. And it was the family of the Ahlebaith, alayhi salatu wasalam, that were imprisoned in Damascus. This topic, as we mentioned, it has multiple aspects, but our focus for these next few days are on the dua of Imam Zain al-Abidin, where he speaks about the relationship of the family, the rights of the parents in dua 24 of Sahifatul Sajjadiyah. But as he is speaking about those rights of the parents as well, it highlights the rights of the children, meaning the rights that the parents have over the children, but the rights that the children also have over the parents. Yesterday, one of the things that we mentioned is that what is the most important thing to gain out of this? Because I know sometimes people they're here, they're not here. So the most important thing is to understand that relationship between parents and children. That relationship should be one of a spiritual connection. Yes, we have the worldly connection whereby we observe those rights of the children and the children observe the rights of the parents. But beyond that, or as we say, the etiquette or the adab of those hukuk, those rights, is that it should be a spiritual connection where the parents are elevating the children and the children are also elevating the parents as well through their dua, through their supplication, and through their recognition of their parents, you could say, patience with regards to training them, raising them, the tarbiyah that is involved. As we also mentioned yesterday, Imam Zain al-Abidin, alayhi salatu wassalam, in dua number 24, Sahifatul Sajjadiyah, he sends about 7 to 8 salawat on the Prophet and his Ahlul Bayt, and that is aligned with one of the philosophies of the salawat, especially as Imam Zain al-Abidin, he said that there were not many people who understood the rights of Ahlul Bayt when he returned back to Medina. But if we look to Surah Al-Ahzab as well, that we recited in the beginning, this also highlights another salawat, or at least one of the philosophies of that salawat. So from verses 56 to 58 of Surah Al-Ahzab. Of course, verse 56 we are quite familiar with. And that is the one that tells us that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his angels, that they send salutations or they make dua. And that's what the salawat is. It is a dua for the barakah and for the blessings of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, and for those who believe, وَالَّذِينَ يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, if you have iman, if you say La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, then it is incumbent, it's an obligation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by his command, Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu, sallu alayhi. Give salawat on the Prophet. Give blessings and make dua for Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and his Ahlul Bayt. So we're very familiar with that obligation and that duty. One of the beautiful aspects of that salawat, as Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he stated about the salawat, he said that whenever a person makes that salawat upon him and his Ahlul Bayt, then he makes dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that the blessings and the barakah of that salawat increase it 100-fold, according to some, 1,000-fold, and send it back to that individual who's making that salat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So immediately after verse 56 of Surah Al-Ahzab, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he explains again an aspect of and a dimension about that blessings and that dua that we make for Rasulullah, or at least the adab or the etiquette in which we interact with Rasulullah. As we mentioned yesterday, that again, this Dua 24 of Imam Zain al-Abidin, one of the things that highlights is not only the relationship that we should have with our actual parents, our parents by blood, but also our spiritual parents, who is Rasulullah and his Ahlebaith alayhim afdalus salatu wassalam. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in verse 57, he says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يُؤْذُونَ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ. So those individuals who harm Allah, who bother Allah and his Prophet, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he will curse them. In other words, the opposite of blessings, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he will remove the barakah from their life. He will remove blessings from their life. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that blessings will be removed for dunya wal akhirah. Dunya wal akhirah. So, and this is one of the beautiful things, even if we read the book of poetry, I don't think it's been translated into English, but the book of poetry of Imam al-Shafi'i, one of the four Imams of Ahlul Sunnah, if you read the poems, in one of his poems, he says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it incumbent and obligatory upon us to send salutations and blessings upon the Prophet. And so he would do that. Sometimes some people, they were like, well, why are you doing this? Because when he gave the salawat, it was not simply upon the Prophet, he says, but the Prophet and his Ahlul Bayt, meaning Ali and Fatima and Hassan and Hussein and the entire Ahlul Bayt of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And his proof is, this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran. And so he beautifully captures this in a poem. And he also states that, yes, we cannot harm Rasulullah. We cannot disrespect Rasulullah sallallahu, even if it's through harming his children, those who are connected to Rasulullah. Even moreover, if some want to object to that, if we read verse number 58. So after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says that whoever harms Allah and Rasulullah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take that blessing away. Again, in similar wording, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that those who harm the believers, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يُؤْذُونَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Why? Because إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةٌ. The believers are brothers. They're brothers. They're connected together. And who ties them together as brothers and sisters in their deen? Rasulullah and his Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdalus salatu wassalam. So this is, in a sense, if you read those three verses and you truly understand them and ponder them, the rights of not only parents are reflected in that, in a sense, the rights of siblings are also reflected in that. And continuing with the dua of Imam Zain al-Abidin, there's a point where the Imam, he reaches and he gives, again, salutations, as I mentioned, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali, kama sharraftana bih. So he points out this aspect. He says that, oh Allah, send your blessings upon the Prophet Muhammad. Why? Because we have been honored by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And of course, without doubt, the Ahlul Bayt are honored by Imam Zain al-Abidin, as he mentions in that khutbah in Damascus. He tells the individuals, he says, that, look, he says, we've been blessed, or we've been given 6 things, and we've been blessed with 7 things. I'm not going to go over all of those 7 things, but one of those things that he says that we've been blessed with, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us fadl with, he says, minnan nabi, that the Prophet is from us. We're from the household of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But he's blessed, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us as well. Those of us who are sitting here, we have that barakah, we have that blessing, that we are from the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In fact, even if we want to truly understand that blessing that we have, and particularly in this particular time, that Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam, and we know that the famous hadith where it says that, that Salman, he's been blessed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's been blessed by the Ahlul Bayt. Why? Because Rasulullah, he says, Salman minna Ahlul Bayt. That Salman is from us. He's from the Ahlul Bayt. Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam, he says that those individuals who will live at the end of time and they hold fast to the Prophet of Allah, of course, Tawheed, La ilaha illallah, the Prophet Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and hold fast to the Ahlebaith wa aliyun waliyullah. He says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bless them to the point that even Salman Farsi, Salman Ahlebaith, that he would wish that he was born at the end of time. He said that why Salman minna Ahlul Bayt, as some of the ulama they explained, they said that yeah, Salman minna Ahlul Bayt because he saw Rasulullah, he saw Amir al-Mu'mineen. And he held fast to them. He says, but at the end of time, he says, those who hold fast to their deen, tawheed, nubuwwah, and the imamat, he says, they didn't see Rasulullah. They don't even see their imam, because he's in ghaiba, or rather we're in ghaiba, but yet still they hold fast to that path. And they are also those individuals, truly, if they followed the teachings of the Quran, the teachings of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, they too can be elevated to that status, minna Ahlul Bayt. He says, so Salman Farsi, that he would even look at that barakah that they have and that station that these individuals at the end of time will be raised to, and he would be envious of them. He would hope that, oh, I wish I was born at that time and that I also had that opportunity. So Imam Zain al-Abidin, he points out that aspect that it is a blessing that we have from being associated with Rasulullah. This final message and revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. كَمَا أَوْجَبْتَ لَنَا الْحَقِّ عَلَى الْخَلْقِ بِسَبَبِهِ. And this particular line also is specific to the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salatu wasalam, where Imam Zain al-Abidin is also pointing out that the Ahlul Bayt, that the family of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that they have been given a right over others. They've been given a right over others. So not only is, as we mentioned before, that part of the politics of this dua is not only for us to learn how to respect and learn the rights of our parents, but also to understand the rights of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salatu wasalam. This is what he's teaching in the society, because the du'as of Imam Zain al-Abidin at that time, they were well known. People knew that. People knew that if Imam Zain al-Abidin, he made a dua, a supplication, that supplication would be answered. Among those rights, and just three of them very quickly that we know, that the rights of Ahlul Bayt, one is the rights of hummus, that they have a haqq, they have a right to hummus. Another one of those rights is the love of Ahlul Bayt, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not ask anything. And this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told the Prophet. Tell them that there's no reward, no return for this message, this Quran, this final revelation, إِلَّا مَوَدَّةَ فِي الْقُرْبَى. And this is also one of those things that Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salatu wasalam, he pointed out in the khutbah of Sham, where he said that those 6 things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, he says, al-mahabba fi qulub al-mu'mineen. Love in the hearts of the believers. Love in the hearts of the believers. And one of those things that creates, and again, so that we are connecting all these things together, one of the things that creates the love of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam in the hearts of the believers is the salawat. And this is what the Rasulullah he taught us. He says to give much. He says, أكثروا بالصلاة على Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, or أكثروا بالصلاة علي وآل بيتي. So recite the salawat as much as you can. This is why, because that salawat, it removes nifaq, it removes hypocrisy from the heart. So this is, again, one of those philosophies of the salawat. And that third right, as we said, is the right of salawat, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He commands us to that. I also want to point out one other aspect, which more or less subtly it comes across, that the blessings of the Ahlebaith alayhim salatu wasalam, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He also emphasizes this in the Quran. And what is that blessing? And what is that, you could say, right that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to the Ahlebaith alayhim salatu wasalam over us, is that they will bear witness either for us or against us. That how is our relationship with Rasulullah? How is our relationship with the Ahlebaith alayhim salatu wasalam? And throughout the events of Karbala, it's very interesting that if you pay attention to some of the sermons, some of the statements of Ahlebaith, of the children of Zainabia Kubra, of Kulthum, even Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salatu wasalam, quite often they said, Nashku illa Rasulullah, that they will complain to Rasulullah. They will complain to Allah, they will complain to Rasulullah that how the Ummah is treating the Ahlebaith. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, again, He points to this in the Quran where He says that لِيَكُونَ الرَّسُولُ شَهِينًا عَلَيْكُمْ وَتَكُونُوا شُهَدَاءَ عَلَى النَّاسِ. That the Prophet of Allah, he is a witness over you all. According to the commentary of this, at least in the riwayat of Ahlebaith alayhim salatu wasalam, Imam Sadiq said, this is us. Yes, the Prophet of Allah, he is a witness, he will bear witness over us, and we will bear witness over mankind, over our Shia, over the Ummah. But in a sense as well, the Ummah, they have that responsibility too as well, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's given us that final revelation. Muhammad wa ali Muhammad alayhim wa salatu wasalam, they will be a witness over us, and we are to be a witness over mankind. And that's at least if we fulfilled our duty and our responsibility as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has outlined in the Quran and in the Sunnah and the Sirat of the Ahlebaith alayhim wa salatu wasalam. When it comes to this aspect of fulfilling their rights and their obligations and a duty to our parents, our siblings, our fellow brothers and sisters in Islam, again, we have the best example before us. And so we are obligated to observe that. And if we observe it correctly, then yes, we will come on Yawm al-Qiyamah saying that yes, we have fulfilled our duty and our responsibility to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, first and foremost, to the Ahlebaith, and to our brothers and sisters, our parents, our brothers and sisters in Deen. And one of those responsibilities or rights and duties, as Imam Zain al-Abidin, he points out in this dua number 24, and particularly as it regards to the parents. And that is to show kindness towards parents, to show obedience towards our parents. And trust me, as I said, that this aspect, when we do this, it's not simply something that is contained within our household. It reflects in society as well. It will affect the way that society interacts with one another. Imam Zain al-Abidin, he prays to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allahumma ja'alni ahabahuma haybat al-sultan al-asuf. A very interesting choice of words that Imam Zain al-Abidin he uses. He says, "Oh Allah, instill in me the awe of my parents as one would have awe in face of a Sultan al-Asuf, a tyrannical ruler." This doesn't mean that the parents should be tyrannical, as I mentioned. Shouldn't say, everything I say, just do, and that's it. No, parents should not be tyrants. Why? Because if they're tyrannical, then what's going to happen? That's the attitude that their children will come up with. They will raise their children with that attitude. And then they will be tyrannical, what? In society. It will flow over in society. Unless that individual is an exceptional individual, yes, he sees the tyranny that exists in his or her home, but then they're able to control themselves. But most of the time what happens, again, that the way that there's an interaction within the family, it pours out into the society. If that household is a household where individuals, they are just, they are fair. Then again, those children, again, some exceptions. There's always an exception to the rule. But it is more likely that when they are raised properly in the household, they see the proper environment in the household, then that reflects how they interact with others within society. If that doesn't exist in the household, that the household is topsy-turvy, the household is a household where you have Fir'aun in the household, then what happens? The kids also become Fir'aun. They become Fir'aun as well. But what Imam Zain al-Abidin, he's pointing to, and we'll see this, what he mentions afterwards. He says that, oh Allah, that's, at least give me that sense that I understand the authority of my parents, that I respect that authority, that I have awe of that authority. And that awe of authority, it also dictates how we interact with our parents, even if they're wrong. Imam Zain al-Abidin, he speaks about this in the next line, in the next section of this dua. But in this section, he says, give me that awe. وَأَبَرَّهُمَا بِرَّ الْأُمِّ الرُّؤُوفِ. He says, although I have this awe, give me that awe. And these seem like two contradictory statements, but as I said, that what Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi he's doing, he's building, you could say, this character that we should have, at least with our parents. So give me that awe of their respect, but allow me to act or interact with them in kindness like a mother is with, you say, her children. That kind and merciful mother. Birrul umm ru'uf. So in other words, we have awe of them, but then when we are interacting with them, we interact with them as if, hey, this is someone who, like, I'm a mother to my parents. And again, where do we see this at? In the Ahlebaith alayhim afro, if we truly examine their life, in every aspect they teach us this. Fatima Zahra, salam alayha, was she not the daughter of Rasulullah? But how did she interact with Rasulullah? What was her kindness towards Rasulullah, to the point that Rasulullah, he says, Fatima ummu abiha. Fatima is the mother of her father. Because her kindness towards her father was like that. Zainab Kubra, salamun alayha. And again, if we don't know the Arabic, we just, oh, Zainab. But what does Zainab mean? It's from two words in Arabic. One is Zain, and the other one is Abu, father. Zain means the beauty, the ornament. So Zainab is a combination of this. Zainab, Zainu Abuha. She was the ornament, the light of the light of her father. This is what Zainab means. So we see this in every aspect of the Sirat of Ahlebaith alayhim salatu wasalam. So Allah, give me that interaction with my parents. وَأَقَرَّ لِعَيْنِي مِنْ رَقْدَةِ الْوَسْنَانِ. So much so that when I look at my parents, that it is more delighting to me than a person who is drowsy, who's really extremely exhausted and tired. We know sometimes we may work or we're like so tired, and then the best thing we see when we see our pillow, we're like, ah. So Imam Zain al-Abidin, he's using this imagery that when we see our parents, that how sweet it would be if a person is tired when they finally get to relax and lay down, that I see my parents in the same light. That when I look upon them, that it just brings joy to me to see them. وَأُقَدِّمَ عَلَى رِضَايَ رَضَاهُمَا. And then I take what they are pleased with. I'd rather see them pleased than myself. These are all the adabs and the etiquettes of, as I said, of observing the rights of the parents. وَأَسْتَكْثِرَ بِرَّهُمَا بِي وَإِنْ قَلَّ. And again, this is subhanAllah, again, someone who studies the psychology of a family, really they need to read this and truly examine and understand this. That what is Imam Zain al-Abidin? What is the adab, the etiquettes? Unfortunately, we don't have time to go through every aspect, only some of the things we could just point out and point to. But we need to reflect upon those things. He says that my parents, their interaction with me, because they're responsible, I have rights over them. And as I have rights over them, again, those rights are a certain set of rights, but also they have etiquettes and adab. So Imam Zayn al-Abidin says that, oh Allah, that let me see all of the good they've done to me as a lot. Even if in reality it's a little. وَأَسْتَقِلَّ بِرِّي بِهِمَا وَإِنْ كَثُرَ. And whatever good I've done for them, Allah painted in my mind and my understanding as being just simply small, just a little bit. Even if I've done a lot for them. Even if I've done a lot for them. In other words, and sometimes unfortunately, when we look at the psychology of raising children, and again, we were also, those of us who have grays in our beards, we were once kids ourselves, and we know how we interact with our parents, and sometimes they may tell us something, and we question, oh, why this? Why that? Oh, can I go to this place? Or, hey, my friends are hanging out. They say, no. And you're like, I never get to do anything. And then we think, oh, my parents are they're just mean. So Imam Zayn al-Abidin, he says, remove this type of thought from your mind. That if you want to develop truly a wholesome household, then these thoughts you have to put away from you. But at the same time, as I mentioned that, again, he asks for the awe of that Sultan and Jahir, of that tyrannical ruler. But it should not be such that our parents or us as parents, that we are tyrants. Again, unfortunately, we won't reach to dua number 25, but definitely read, if you read dua number 24 of Imam Zayn al-Abidin, the dua that the children recite for the parents, read the dua number 25, the dua that the parents should recite for the children. Understand those reciprocal rights. And our time is very limited, but one of the things I want to mention, if we get to that second part, or the other part of the dua of Imam Zayn al-Abidin, where he asks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, again, after he asks for, Allah, give me the awe that they are tyrannical rulers, but again, the love and respect of them that a mother will have for the child. And he says, Allahumma khaffid lahuma sawti. This is, now, how do we interact with our parents? Especially, again, seeing, because I want to mention one of the beautiful hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this comes that, yes, perhaps, our parents may have not observed all those rights. And he's pointing to this. He says that, let me see that whatever they've done for me as a lot, even if really it's a little. And whatever I've done for them as very little, even if I've done a lot. He says, in other words, don't keep count. Oh, hey, I've done this, my parents done this. It's not a tit for tat. Tit for tat. The Prophet, he said that if a person goes to a sultan and jair, a tyrannical ruler, so Imam Zayn al-Abidin says that, give me that awe of this tyrannical ruler. But the Prophet says that if a person goes to a tyrannical ruler and basically advises that ruler of what? Taqwallah. Taqwallah. And gets them to fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, then that individual will have the reward of thaqalaini min al-jinni wal-ins. that person will gain the reward of all of man and jinn. So does it mean that our parents should be tyrants and we don't try to correct them? No, if we are truly developing that relationship, that spiritual relationship with our parents, then yes, we also have to, again, make them closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Making them closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through our interaction with us, meaning that, yes, they observe the rights. But how do we do that? And this is the thing that unfortunately sometimes we don't understand. And I've seen some unfortunate situation where parents will cut their children off. Oh, they're upset with their children. Children will cut off their parents. And, oh, no, I'm not going to speak to my parents anymore. Move away and don't want to have anything to do with their parents. Don't come visit, don't call. It happens, unfortunately. But Imam Zain al-Abidin says, look, this is not the way to act or to interact. Even if they were that sultanun ja'ir as a child, how do you interact with them? You ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, خَفِّضْ لَهُمَا صَوْتِي. Yes, maybe through politeness, my kindness. Even through increasing my goodness towards them, that they will begin to understand that, oh, subhanAllah, I did this to my child or that, but they keep increasing their goodness and their kindness towards me. And as they keep increasing their goodness and kindness towards me, then what happens? Then they too will begin to interact in the same. So Allah, make my voice low for them and help me to use the best of words. If they're yelling at me, what are you? Do we respond through yelling? No, absolutely not. Absolutely. And what do we say to them? You pick the best of words. Of course, they should be using the best of words, but we don't let their bad choice of words, their maybe sometimes elevated speech, don't let it get to us where we return the same type of speech or talk or tone. But no, we keep our voice low. We use the best of words. وَأَلِنْ لَهُمَا عَرِيكَتِي. Even if they lose their temper with me, then you should not never lose your temper with them. And make my heart attached to them. And then this is very beautiful as he ends. He says, وَسَيِّرْنِي بِهِمَا رَفِيقًا. Oh Allah, make me their friend. Make me with them like a friend. This is one of the levels that when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that there are different levels of tarbiyah, 7 years, 7 years, 7 years. One of those years is that where the parents, they become like the rafiq, the friend of their children. Why did they become their friend? Because now their children are adults. So you have to treat them like an adult. And this is, unfortunately, sometimes one of the areas where we fall short. Many people, they fall short. They don't understand that. They think that, oh, well, all of my children, they are adults, that I still treat them like children. But the Rasulullah, he says, if you want to train them in the best way, you treat them like adults, you befriend them. You guide them through wisdom and understanding. And Allah, make me with them shafiqa. Unfortunately, because of the shortness of time, I won't be able to go through the meaning of that. But it's very beautiful. That make me shafiqa. In other words, just very simply, allow me to interact with them emotional and spiritual intelligence. Inshallah, maybe tomorrow we'll go through that a little bit more in detail. These are the teachings of Ahlebaith. And this is why we see that Imam Zain al-Abidin, that as he had love for Rasul, love for his father, that whenever he remembered the events of Karbala, that he would cry, he would weep. One of his famous companions, Abu Hamza Thumali, Abu Hamza Thumali was one of those individuals who narrated many of the du'as of Imam Zain al-Abidin. He's the one who actually asked Imam Zain al-Abidin, write for me the hukuk, the rights that people have over one another. And Imam Zain al-Abidin, he dictated that to Abu Hamza Thamali. One day, Imam Abu Hamza Thamali, he sees Imam Zain al-Abidin just crying profusely. And he says, Ya ibn Rasulullah, هذا البكاء, that you're continuing to cry. He says that your uncle Hamza, he was martyred. Your grandfather, Amir al-Mu'mineen, he was martyred. And you continue to cry. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he made this maqam of shahada, martyrdom. It is an honor for you, for the Ahlebaith. So he is truly inquiring that why are you continuing to cry? Imam Zain al-Abidin, he said to Abu Hamza Thamali, he says, yes, that's true. But ya Abu Hamza, have you ever heard before the time of Karbala? Have you ever seen before the time of Karbala that after a battle, because that was an unusual battle, that the women and children, that they will be taken captive, that they will be ushered across the lands of the believers? So he said to Abu Hamza Thamali, Wallah, ya Aba Hamza, ما نظرت إلى عاماتي وأخواتي إلا ذكرت فرارهم من خيمة إلى خيمة. He says, Ya Abu Hamza, whenever I look towards my aunts, whenever he looked towards Kulthum, whenever he looked towards Zainab, whenever he looked to the women of the Ahlebaith, he says, I will remember the time in Karbala when they were fleeing from one tent to another, when the houses were, when the tents were being put on fire. He says, وَالْمُنَادِي يُنَادِ إِحْرِقُوا بَيُوتَ الظَّالِمِينَ. What were they saying? He says, set the tents of the Zalimeen, of the oppressors, on fire. But people know that the people of the house of Yazid, they were the Zalimeen. They were the oppressors who killed the family of Rasulullah. They were the ones who struck the lips of Imam Hussein, broke the teeth of Imam Hussein. They said that Imam Zain al-Abidin, this is one of the du'as, and I'm sure that Abu Hamza, he would hear this dua, he would call to Allah, Ya Farij al-Ham, Ya Kashif al-Gham. Oh Allah, you're the one who relieves the worries. Oh Allah, you're the one who removes the grief. Remove my grief, remove my worries. What were those worries and the griefs of Imam Zain al-Abidin? It was the events of Karbala. It was the tragedy that he saw and experienced in Sham, the death of Ruqayya, how the heads were being placed upon the spears and ushered from place to place. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. اللهم بحق هذا المجلس الحسيني اغفر ذنوبنا واستر عيوبنا واقضي حوائجنا واشف مرضانا وارحم وعجل فرج مولانا صاحب العصر والزمان واجعلنا من أعوانه وأنصاره والمستشهدين بين يديه وتحت لوائه حق محمد وآله الطاهرين.